record. Appreciate that. No worries, Bobby. I know how this goes. Um, so, but I was a public high school teacher for 18 years here, mostly here in Washington State. Did a little bit of teaching in New Mexico, but I was very involved in our union. I was elected to my local executive board a number of years. I was elected by my peers to represent our union at the state assembly for a number of years. And I was a building rep for most of my teaching career. So I want everybody to know that I come to you as 100% down for labor. And the purpose of this meeting is sort of multifold. First of all, I want to say, we appreciate SEIU for the invitation for Butch to come and address the membership. As a third-party candidate, we're fully aware that we are treated with a healthy dose of skepticism from union organizations who want to make sure often that they are, backing the eventual winner, and third parties do not have a fantastic history of winning large elections. We definitely think that we have a chance in this election. We're going to present our case to you this year. I think the tides are turning a lot in terms of how people are viewing the political establishment, and in particular, labor are viewing the political establishment as, adversarial and not allies. And I think what's happened to labor across the country really bears that out. And as Green Party members, even though we have not been known as a quote unquote labor organization, our platform is extremely labor friendly. In fact, it's more labor friendly than the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, the ruling class platforms. And so we want to make sure that we can present to you that we do have a pathway to winning this election. Butch will talk about that. And then we want to make sure that we can provide some opportunities for those SEIU members who want to support the campaign. We'll kind of lay it out what the best things that you can do for us if you choose to support us, because we absolutely want to secure that SEIU endorsement. And we know that as these things go, I don't necessarily want to call it bandwagoning because there's a lot more thought that goes on into it, but it really takes one organization to make that step forward and say, we're going to take a chance on endorsing the people who represent us. As Eugene Debs said, I would rather vote for what I want and not get it than vote for what I don't want and get it. And I think that's the position labor is in right now. That's my introduction. I do want to say that I'm wearing my shirt from the National Association of Letter Carriers, Local 4033 in Palmdale, Lancaster. I'm in Washington State, but they invited me. They were striking in March, and they invited me to come down to Palmdale and rally with them and give a speech to their membership who were out on the streets holding signs. And so I did that, was very honored to do that. I got this We'll Fight Like Hell t-shirt from the letter carriers in Palmdale. So I'm representing Union here with what I'm wearing also. So I've said enough for now. Just so everybody knows, we are recording. I did see Butch in the chat, so I'm going to introduce Butch in a second, but I want to introduce my co-host, our co-host here, Chris Lopez. Chris is the host of the Union or Bust podcast out of San Diego. He is a member of UFCW, and I forget your local, Chris, but if you want to pop your video and mic on here and join us and introduce yourself, we're going to be talking with Chris throughout this also. Chris, you're on.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Lopez, your union brother on TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. Also, a proud union member since 1994. Gosh, I'll tell you a funny story. So in 2003, 2004, we had the largest labor dispute in U.S. history. And I was kind of a pain in the ass on the picket line. And anyway, management decided to transfer me to another store against my will. and I was the head union steward at the time. And you know, but then I ended up meeting my wife, Jessica, and now we have three daughters. So I always say, if I never would have gone on strike, I never would have met the woman of my dreams. So that's kind of just a cool story. So to see what happens when you go on strike. And anyway, gosh, I've been in the union a long time. The labor movement is something that's very special, and I think that the labor movement could be defined as we don't allow the billionaires or millionaires to dictate our wages, our benefits, or our working conditions. We deserve a say in decision making process. So, having, and remember, the labor movement is about everyone. People are got a little plane helicopter flying by. You hear that? Um, okay, here we go. Can you
You're
guys hear me
fine.
still?
We can't hear anything except your wonderful voice.
Now you can hear me. Okay. So anyway, and uh, anyway, that's like the labor movement, and the labor movement is about everyone. It's not just about institutionalized unions. You have UFCW, you have Teamsters, and it's important to have that. But the fire in the labor movement is, for example, the Amazon workers in Minnesota. They all walked off the job because of COVID. There were safety violations, and they weren't part of a quote unquote institutionalized union, but they were part of the labor movement. They decided to say, you know what, this isn't right. So it was a pleasure having, Dr. Ware on the Union or Bust podcast. Hopefully, we get him booked again. And anyway, and if you would like to check us out, just go to Union or Bust. Just Google it, and we'll be there. So anyway, very good to meet everyone.
Appreciate that, Chris. And that reminds me also that we are in touch with Chris Smalls, who formed the Amazon Union, and Butch is going to be doing some live stream conversation with Chris upcoming here fairly shortly. We don't have it scheduled yet, but once we touch base on it, it'll happen sometime within the next week or two, I'm sure. And I also, as we are in this moment of somewhat labor crisis, we also, we have a history of here on the West Coast. So I'm in Seattle, and we have the Starbucks union that many local stores have gone on strike, have petitioned to form a Starbucks union, and we're super supportive of any labor that wants to organize. Now, organizing and then getting that contract in place, those are two separate things. But it starts somewhere, and we're real proud of the Starbucks workers. I went around Western Washington here and talked to a number of Starbucks locals about how we could, that if they stepped off the line to form their union, that we would have their backs. This was a year ago, before this campaign, before the Steinware campaign. So, without further ado, Butch is back from Sacramento. Butch, why don't you step in, and I'll let you take it from here, and we'll have this conversation about how we can win this race. The pathway is there. We need to convince labor that the pathway is there. The labor endorsement is fantastically important to our campaign. And Butch, if you want to go ahead from here.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. And good to see you again as well, Chris. Good to see everybody that's here. For those of you that are in a position to turn on your cameras, and I realize some people are driving or they're cooking dinner, and you can't, understood. But I always love to create a virtual classroom environment whenever I can. So I'm going to be brief in the opening comments, because what I really want is for this to turn into an organizing build. And so that is going to require like you guys asking me questions and me asking you guys questions about how we can both be most effective in this particular moment. But I do just want to kind of set the stakes. So how many of the people in this Zoom room now were in the room at SEIU in Sacramento? If you can raise your hand or hit a raise hand button. Excellent. Outstanding. Okay. And since I'm a history professor, we'll start with a pop quiz. Do you guys remember the line from Malcolm that I went out on in my very last? They were right to give. It wasn't just alphabetical order. They were right to give me the mic last because you never want to have somebody have to speak after me because it's like Rakim said. I ain't no joke. I used to let the mic smoke. Now I slam it when I'm done and make sure it's broke when I'm gone. No one gets on because I won't let nobody press up or mess up the scene. I said. Hey, you saw the billionaire have to walk off. So what was the bar that we went out on in the meeting? Anybody remember? It was for Malcolm, and it was Malcolm in 1964. He said of the Democrats. Oh, Chris, you got this one? Oh, hit the unmute button. Can
Take it,
Chris
Chris.
can Chris unmute? I think I'm not a host, so somebody else has to give him the right. Or Clem, maybe you can make me a
Oh,
host.
um, it's not
I
allowing you to unmute. I
There
think
we
you
go.
should be able
I
to.
think I am. I
Yeah,
am
you
unmuted.
got it.
Thank
You
you.
got it.
Thank you. I have to admit that I was probably by the time we got to the closing remarks a little bit like starstruck, and it's all become a blur. But I would say I'm going to just take a guess, and it was the Ballad or the Bullet.
It was the Ballad of the Bullet, 1964. And so, what Malcolm said in the Ballad of the Bullet speech is he said about the Democrats, he said, "You put them first and they put you last. And that makes you a chump. That makes you a political chump." And the last thing that I said is, "Ain't y'all tired of getting chumped?" And the reason why I said, "Ain't y'all tired of getting chumped?" is because the SEIU put $1 million into Lil Gavin's campaign, and then he turn around and stab y'all in the back, stab y'all in the front at the negotiating table. And that is, both an instantiation and a metaphor for the way that the Democrats have been dealing with organized labor. They're happy to take your endorsement, they're happy to take your cash. But then when it actually comes down to it, that the last thing that I said was from Malcolm. The first thing that I said in my very first intervention, and this was hours before, I'm not going to quiz you on it because I know nobody remembers this. But what I said was you cannot represent management and the workers at the same time. You cannot represent management and the shop floor. And that is the fundamental problem is that a party that works for the corporate ownership class cannot represent labor. It's a conflict of interest and it's a structural impossibility. So we have an incredible opportunity to break that relationship in this moment. It was a seismic moment what happened in that room in Sacramento. And the reason is, and you guys can correct me if this is incorrect, but what we heard was that from the members only discussion after the fact, that we took the top candidate discussion plainly and that was obvious. And I've heard now from people in important leadership positions in SEIU 1000 that because of that and because of the strong support from the membership, that they have to seriously consider endorsement. And if we are able to secure an endorsement from SEIU early in this process, the Dems are dead. Dead. Because the only hope that they have is praying that they never let me on a stage with Katie Porter again. And believe me, she's calling everybody in her Rolodex. Sorry for the dated reference. Everybody in her Rolodex to try to keep that Negro off of this stage because it is not a matchup that they can win. It's just not a matchup they can win. And the thing is as I said during the presidential campaign, the American people aren't fools. They've just been fooled, right? If you show them quality and what actual representation and a working class agenda looks like, then people are going to go for it. And the only way that they can win is if they hide us. So this upcoming APAPA candidate forum is a huge opportunity. I flew up to Sacramento, as Jason mentioned. I just made it back after spending the whole day in the airport. There was lightning on so we had a ground stop in Sacramento, and I spent most of the day in San Francisco. but I was
Hey,
there for
shout out to
around.
airport workers as well.
Yeah,
Union
and
Brothers Teamsters, you
everybody else,
know.
but I'm gonna tell you something. Everybody else was complaining. I was like, nah, that's collectively bargained. You cannot have, you can't have, working in hazardous working conditions. So I'm all for the ground stop. But what I said was, is this is exactly why we need high speed rail in this state because it doesn't make any sense for us to be going on a flight from Sacramento to San Francisco and then from San Francisco to Santa Barbara. That's just nonsensical. And to be stuck on the ground because of some lightning, because if we had a train, it would have been running. But I digress. That what was supposed to be a 1 hour interview turned into a 2 hour interview, and Julie Watts said that it was longer than any conversation that she had with any of the other candidates because she was getting answers to the questions that she was not anticipating. So the point is that this is an opportunity. It's the beginning of making sure that this campaign is taken seriously. And I'll just put all of my cards on the table. Is that we need y'all's help. We need the help of the people that are in the union to apply pressure to the leadership to make them follow through. Because the logic of the situation, there all of the institutional inertia that is going to have to be overcome to get them to actually follow through on what y'all want is going to take it's going to take a lot to overcome that institutional inertia. So it's
And
going to take. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
yeah, I kind of want to backstop what Butch is saying. As I introduced myself, I said I was a public high school teacher. In 2016, members of my state union, Washington Education Association, National Education Association, were furious that Randy Weingarten of AFT and I forget her name, Lilia. I forget her name, but whoever was the head of the NEA at the time, they endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders early on without paying attention to membership concerns whatsoever. They did an early endorsement. They said, Hillary's our candidate. That's it. You Bernie folks, obviously I was a Bernie guy. You guys sit down. Your voice is not important to us. We were furious. We were absolutely furious that we got shut out of that conversation. So that's what we don't want that relationship between union leadership and membership to continue. If the union membership in SEIU or any other union is majority for Butch, that endorsement needs to come. But you guys are probably going to, I don't know what the culture is like in SEIU, but you guys are probably going to fight for it. And that's kind of what we want to talk about here, is how to do that. So we do have it. Butch, go ahead, but I do want to acknowledge Ida's got a hand up also.
Oh yeah, yeah. And actually, that was just going to turn things over to people that want to ask questions now because that's where I'm headed. Is that what I want to do before we kind of talk about how to move forward from here? Is that I just want to answer whatever questions that you guys may have of me in this closed room, because in order for you guys to carry forward the case, you guys need to see the vision of how we actually win this thing. And so, and I, before I start to take the questions, I just want to affirm and acknowledge that from my standpoint, the biggest hill that we have to climb is not the institutional inertia. It's the perception that we can't win. And that's the reason why I, quoted Malcolm to try to put that idea in people's heads. Never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are, because we have a very clear plan of how to execute getting there. And I want you guys to ask whatever questions you need to know, what you think the biggest concerns are, where our structural, weaknesses in our argument are going to be, because I'll tell you the way that I perceive them. And this is something that Jason and I agreed on. The Green Party has the best platform for working people, but until I came on board, it has never been a working people's party. And that part has to change. That part, we have not done the work of getting into these rooms and listening to y'all's concerns and showing up and doing the infrastructure building work. So the thing is that I'm an organizer by nature and an activist by disposition. So I'm going to get in this room and answer whatever questions you guys have so that we can build the support inside so that we can put enough pressure on them that they have to do the thing that's in folks' best interest. Yes,
And
Ida.
go ahead,
Oh,
Ida.
Hi, I'm the person who ran up to you and hugged you after you finished speaking.
nice to see you again.
It was I was like positively shocked that our local actually invited a Green. I was like, this is earth-shattering. Positively, very positively shocked. So, I would like to address a few things. Uh, I guess they're tied. They're all connected. So, um, after you candidates left, we had a powwow, and I spoke. I spoke to the fact, what I think Jason mentioned earlier, that the unions always end up endorsing somebody, the horse most likely to win, right? And I basically said that we can't keep doing that, because look what happened with Gavin. We supported him, and then he stabbed us. And people were overwhelmingly. I've never received such an applause in my life to anything I've ever said publicly. So that was encouraging. I also spoke another time to the process that Emily mentioned in the chat, the one voice.
One voice, yeah.
I was very adamant about finding, I wanted to hear the answers from the people, the powers that be, what happens in the third leg of the process, because that is the part that is totally non-transparent. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Jovanka Beckles, but we put up a huge fight to get her endorsed. We had this one voice, we were caucusing, we were really working on it. That was the democratic part. We managed to persuade one of the unions that are part of our one voice to change their mind. So we ended up deciding, we sent a recommendation for Jovanka, but then in that smoke-filled back room, the board, whoever the hell, decided, oh, we'll endorse Jesse. And that's how things happen. And I don't know, maybe the others who were in the room can correct my recollection, but I didn't exactly get a satisfactory answer to my question as to, will that be live streamed? Can we be in that room? No, we can't. It won't be live streamed. So we need to put up a big fight within SEIU Local 1000 to open up that, smoky back room, smoke-filled back room, because that's where all good candidates go to die. And the other thing, so in this post candidate, whatever it's called, not the decompression, but I can't remember the term of art.
Debrief.
Debrief, right. A lot of people were saying they really, really liked you and they were going to vote for you. But like the concern, those who had concerns expressed the concern of your lack of experience in government. And there was somebody also expressed a concern about not addressing AI in a more substantive way. Like that's a big concern to all labor, including state workers. And so my question to you is, how do you plan to address the lack of experience part? Like how would you put your cabinet together? How would you govern?
Yep. Excellent. So I'll treat this briefly and then move on to, because I saw a hand from, was it Haley? And Haley, if you had
Haley.
If you had something you wanted to just jump in that because it connects to some substantive piece of what Ida said, please by all means do so now. If it's a separate question, then I'll just wait.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to speak a little bit to what I recall from the larger conversation about how the one voice process works.
Okay.
It sounds like it's sort of like multi-layered. From here, there's an invite-only SEIU conference, and there is a committee at that conference. And I don't know that they told us who's on the committee, but they're the ones that ultimately make the decision about who to endorse. And so they're supposed to take into consideration suggestions from the locals, but I mean, given that SEIU California is so big, and represents so many different kinds of workers. Like the whoever the people that were there at that particular forum in large part are, people that work behind computers and offices, but our local also represents custodians and prison guards and CHP officers, and all of those people have vastly different interests and need different kinds of workplace protections. And so it often feels like, in trying to appease everyone, that what SEIU California does when they make these endorsements is they just pick the quote unquote most popular candidate. And so I think that Ida was right. Like, everyone kind of expressed, like, I don't want to endorse just the quote unquote most popular candidate. Like, we're telling you in the room, this is what we think. And I know Emily commented on one of my posts in the chat that the president of our local basically said, like, they would elevate our thoughts. But, how much can we really trust that that's going to be the case when there's no real democratic process in place? They're not surveying people, they're not polling people. If they did that, they might get a very different outcome than what seems to me like the people at the top, the old guard, are the ones that are really making this decision in isolation. So I know that I'm in the Signal chat and someone was talking about maybe sending a letter to SEIU. So I think, that's one thing we could definitely pursue. And some of the other people in my district labor council were talking about possibly trying to put together some sort of progressive leftist reform committee within the union also. I just think that within our local and within the larger umbrella SEIU California, there is an extreme resistance to any kind of like leftist politics. They seem very protective of the Democratic Party. So that was just my impression kind of from that members only debrief about how the actual endorsement will work.
If I
Excellent.
if I can say a couple of things, we had one of your members reach out to our volunteer coordinator and then got put in touch with me, and she wanted some help in drafting a letter. She's like, I'm behind Butch 1,000%. Please help me communicate with my leadership. And so I helped script a letter, and I said, make this yours in your own voice and make it authentic. But these are the points you need to hit. The way these endorsement processes have played out in the past, as has already been mentioned, how has that worked out for labor? It has simply not worked out for labor. So are we ready to take a chance on trying something new? And the other thing is there is no downside. There is literally no downside to stepping out ahead and endorsing the candidate who best represents labor values, even if they're not a major party candidate. Because of the way the top two primary works in California, I mean, what are you going to end up with? Like, what is the worst outcome for an election in California? The worst outcome for an election in California is that a Republican gets elected. But we know that's not going to happen. I mean, there's not going to be a Republican elected in California. It's going to be some form of Democrat, or it's going to be Butch, right? And so if we can work, and the way the top two primary has broken down in the last few cycles is that set, the leading Democrat candidate gets something like 45% of the vote right off the top, and they're going to move forward. And then the next bunch of candidates, and I should let everybody know, there's at least 55 candidates filed for this seat right now. I mean, it's a massive field. Most of them are no names. They're not going to get anything, but they are going to split that vote off by small percentages. The second place candidate, we have kind of worked it out. If we can get 17, 18% of the vote in the primary, that is a lock. That is an absolute lock. That's about 1.5 million votes, and it is achievable. So the worst thing that could happen is that you end up with a Democrat and a Republican on the ballot, and then the Democrat wins. Like, the worst thing that can happen is you get some corporate Democrat in office because Republican's not going to be there. So why not take a chance on the best possible outcome, work to get Butch that second spot? Because if it's Butch and whoever, Katie Porter, Xavier Becerra, whoever it might be, on the road from July 2nd to November, it's, Butch is going to win. There's no question that Butch is going to win because we are going to appeal to a wide swath. We're not ideal. Like a lot of people play the team red or team blue. And if you're in team blue, you would never touch a team red. And if you're in team red, you would never touch a team blue. But green is almost independent. And the largest voting bloc in California is actually independents. In fact, we looked at the numbers coming out of the presidential election. If did not vote were a candidate, did not vote would have won the presidential election. So we want to make sure we are giving all these people who typically would not be interested in the election because they know that Team Red and Team Blue do not represent their interests. We want to give them a reason to come out. We think that Butch is the candidate to do that. And it is going to be an absolute game changer for politics in America and in particular for labor. So there's just nothing to lose. There's really nothing to lose by making that endorsement. But that's the case that your membership is going to have to make to your leadership. Butch, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to address Ida's questions, kind of very specifically and sequentially with what Haley has, kind of added to. And I guess where I would start, kind of recalling, where you started with the debrief is, yes, the Debs quote is outstanding, but the best outcome is to vote for what you want and get it. And that is the outcome that we're aiming for. And in order for us to do that, we need to understand the interior of that one voice process as much as possible so that we can apply maximum pressure and maximum leverage to the decision makers at every single step along the way. So one thing that I'll just, say is that letter template that Jason put together, we should be thinking that everybody that's in this room that's a member needs to write one of those letters. And then you need to reach out to a half dozen of your friends that are also in the union and have them write one, even if they were just one that just kind of liked what I was saying. We've got to actually do the work of whipping together the support and making enough noise because like we used to say back home, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. When you keep making noise, they have to attend to you. So that's going to require organizational effort. It's going to require interventions at specific moments in the process to help guide the outcome. Now, I can tell you that we're going to have support from some people in important leadership positions in SEIU Local 1000. So that is going to be helpful. And one of that is that we're going to get the opportunity to appear in other candidate forums, that we're going to, after that performance, they're going to facilitate us continuing to be part of the conversation through the process. And as long as that's the case, I'm going to keep going up and catching bodies. Like that's just how that's going to work. If they let me on stage with them Dems, bring a body bag because, Klubeck walked off this time. Maybe next time is Becerra. By the end, maybe we can send Katie home too. So all of that's just to say that like this is going to require us moving. But in order for to do that, and this is your third point, Ida, and the most important one, I need to provide you guys with the ammunition on how we're going to do this and how you're going to answer people's questions and concerns. So the first part is about experience. And I'll just say I had my whole paragraph long answer to the experience question in my notes ready for it on that stage if anybody had been capable of giving me pushback. So I'm ready to deploy that at any point in time, right? Because an outsider to the system is not purchased and bought by the system. Someone that is not accepting corporate donations or PAC donations is responsible to the people rather than to the corporations. But with respect to actual governance, listen, I was, as a 30-year-old first-year professor, I got a over $1 million grant to manage a research project across 4 continents that involved hundreds of scholars. It was my first year on the job. From the beginning of my career, I've always been at the top half of 1% in managing and directing large teams to get important jobs done. And nobody asked that kind of question about Trump, who couldn't pass a single class that I've ever taught at any of my universities. So we can come back on the experience means you are not tainted by the corruption. Lack of experience means you're not tainted by the corruption of the system. It means that you are not accepting the payoffs that lead to those backroom conversations and those backroom compromises. And I have no question whatsoever that this will be the most competent and educated regime ever to govern inside the state of California. And if you don't believe it, compare my arguments to those of my competition. And so I made a version of that case in the CBS interview because they did ask me that question. Now governance, and this is the most important part because this piece is strategic. So we have been recruiting people to run for state legislature, and I think that we're going to have at least a dozen candidates at this time. I'm hoping that we can get that to about 2 dozen candidates by the time that the election is taking place. By March 3rd, 2026 is when we have to have our legislative slate forward. And we've already got one green running for Congress. We've got an incredibly talented, dynamic Mexican American organizer who is 98% in to run for another congressional seat. I just got to push the brother over the edge. He's one of our, good friends and allies. And so I'm trying to recruit that slate so that we can go in with friends in office so that we're capable of governing. But I made the case in that CBS interview, and it'll be good when the video comes out because then you can point people to the answer, and it'll be in a clean, polished video, and it'll be, the takes from the other candidates will always be there because anytime they put us side by side, quality is gonna come through, right? They're going to just see the difference in candidate quality. So anytime it's a direct candidate comparison, we're going to do well. So what I said there was that I've actually seen what happens when an independent candidate from outside the system wins. As I said, Julie, you have to play it forward to understand what will have to have happened. And I saw this with Jesse Ventura in Minnesota in 1998 because Minneapolis is my second hometown. Jesse Ventura ran as an independent candidate, not as a Democrat or a Republican. And when he won the governor's mansion, people on both sides of the aisle had to either get down with his program or lay down because it was going down one way or the other because the people had spoken. The popular mandate that we will be riding is exactly the popular mandate that you guys saw emerge in a 3.5 hour interaction on a Sacramento Saturday. The people will be supporting this. And that means that those legislators, even the Republican ones, are going to have to get down with our program or get out of the way. And then the last piece of that is that I am, and this goes to the experience part, I'm not a career politician. I don't care if I get reelected for a second term, if I can get universal health care, if I can get affordable housing, if I can get union labor taken care of. I'm happy to become the most unpopular person in the state if I can deliver on services for the people. Because I'm not doing this as part of my presidential run, the way that Gavin Newsom is doing it as part of a presidential run. I'm doing it to actually serve the working people of the state. So those arguments together about the actual practical logistics of how you govern. So that means that I will hold their feet to the fire and I'm going to provide the leadership on I'll expend all of the political capital because I'm not reserving any of it for myself or my career ambitions. I don't have political career ambitions. My goal is to serve. And AI. Baba Kofi put it into the chat, working on AI platform pieces. Yes, we absolutely have to. It's connected to that tech oligarchy that I talked about so much. With those 9 households in Silicon Valley that possess $683 billion of the people's wealth and are hoarding it. Is that as long as those people have an outsized influence on our state's economy, then they are going to continue to use AI to push working people out of jobs because their model is to try to maximize profit, whereas my model will be that we're using AI to maximize benefit. We're trying to use artificial intelligence is coming one way or the other. So what it means is we have to do it in the most ecologically sustainable way, and it has to be for the public good, not for private profits. So that means it's not to be a weapon to put working people out of work. Any other questions? Yeah, democratize the AI. Really, and I think that I didn't say this in that interview, in that forum, or in the most recent interview. I don't remember where I said this, but it was in one podcast. I said that the problem that people have with AI isn't with AI. The problem people have with AI is with capitalism. The issue is how AI is being integrated into our society and deployed. It's being integrated in a way that's destructive of the natural environment because that's the thing that maximizes profit for oligarchs. It's being implemented in a way that pushes laborers out and controls, labor because that's the thing that is maximum benefit for oligarchs. Drew.
Hey, so I don't have a question. I just wanted to really quickly bring up a project that I'm starting as a volunteer, and also full disclosure, I was supposed to be a teacher, but the education system when I was in college never wound up in a union. So I was in IWW for a while, so I'm here today just as a volunteer. But I just wanted to bring up because someone brought up the PSL candidacy in the chat, and it's something I've been thinking a lot about how this campaign can relate to PSL and their candidacy. And I started an open letter that I'm going to be using some connections I have to try to publish, hopefully on behalf of the campaign, but at least on behalf of myself, to socialist and communist parties and organizations, to unions, to basically say that like this is the campaign we should be uniting behind. So I just want to put it out there in the room today for anybody who's connected to those kinds of organizations. If they want to reach out to help, I want to make sure it's a really comprehensive, strong argument and get it out to as many publications as possible because I think that would be really huge. So yeah, that's all I wanted to bring today because I'm not a union member. So.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Drew. And I mean, I can talk about, the PSL relationship if people are interested. But yeah, and happy to answer that. I just want to go back to one thing that I just saw in the chat, which is from Emily at 632. Listen, our members took shit into their own hands and pushed our union to care about telework. We can push them in this too. We just need people to care about labor-friendly policies. We need education with our members and represented staff. So amen to all of that. You guys absolutely have the power to push this through. With respect to the open letter to PSL, Drew, I'm very excited to see where you go with it. Is from my standpoint, it's just it's an unfortunate missed opportunity for solidarity on PSL's part. Because the reality is that PSL has never gotten more than 0.2% of a vote in any election. So it's not an electoral threat to our campaign. And even the oligarchic media has had to acknowledge that while they don't consider the Green Party a major party, that in all of the venues where they are inviting only major candidates, they have to invite me. And that's the reason why it was a missed opportunity, because it's very difficult to turn away a candidate that has received 1 million votes in a vice presidential election. No one else has run for office at that scale. Almost none of the other candidates have received that many votes in anything. And so therefore it becomes very, very hard to dismiss the candidacy. And it gave us an opportunity, had PSL and Peace and Freedom Party been willing to actually work on a left unity slate, which Jason busted his tail to try to get them to do it, and they just wouldn't do it. And I apologize for the politically incorrect lingo, but all I can think of is what my dad, who, as I mentioned, was a locksmith, with a sixth grade education, what he would have said, these would have been his exact words: too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Everybody wants to have their own thing, and nobody wants to play on a team. And I said, play on the team, name all of your players, bring all of them onto the roster, and they still wouldn't play ball. So So all of that is just to say I still have nothing but love for what they're trying to accomplish politically. And what I said in this room. You're not going to hear me say it in public because on June 2nd, when we finish in either first or second, then all of those PSL folks and peace and freedom folks, hell, a third of our volunteers in some districts are PSL people, despite the fact that they've got their own candidate running. So they're still going to, I believe, in the end, support us. And I'm going to take the high road with respect to the missed opportunity because I still want the strongest possible team. And yeah, that's it. I'll leave it at that. Ajamu's got a hand up. Brother Ajamu.
Yeah, but I'll just make this real quick. I don't want to, because I want to hear more. Hey, let me check out real quick. Yes, I wanted to hear more from our members to get a chance to get a chance to hear you speak and give your analysis as well too. Earlier today, I was just no more about maybe 40 minutes ago. Sorry, getting on late. I was having a conversation with Karen Jeffries. She was the sister that asked one of the questions to you with regards to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was able to through her to kind of get another temperature check of the room in terms of how members felt about your answers, your candidates, and so forth. She had confirmed what the two other confirmations that I received as well too, of how favorable you were. One of the questions came up, which was, "Can you win?" And I did have to go ahead and give some type of contextual historical context in terms with her how progress occurs. And when
Yep.
you say win, how do you define win, and on whose grounds you making the determination what considers a win? So that's the conversations that we were having.
Yep.
Now she also too brought to my attention the whole issue regarding AI. I wrote an article about 2 years ago on AI. The department head of my department read the article and sent me an email back asking me more questions about AI and what's coming. So this is what the deal is. AI, Dr. Ware, AI is a part of the human. It's part of the human experience called progress. It has a particular type of function in terms of how humans employ technology to remove us away from laborious type of work. The bigger question that we got to get and ask, and Dr. King raised this question back in I think 1967 or 68 when Dr. King was talking about a universal income. That right there is upon us now. As we know, even now with technology coming online, we saw that the ruling class through their ownership or corporations were able to tear down factories in the Midwest, the Rust Belt, move them overnight elsewhere. That has to do with the advancement of technology to be able to do that, which left a lot of workers superfluous. So the question we have to ask ourselves when we begin to engage AI, since it's coming, whose interest should AI be, should this form of technology be employed in? Who should own it? And what interest should everyday working people have with relations to AI? Because it will impact us. And secondly, with that, and it will change the fundamental aspect of how we understand work and see our social reality. So should we start not only talk about AI, but talk about accompany AI with the universal basic income? Because some folks, some working folks' labor would be superfluous, and that's fact. I just kind of want to kind of deal with that for a while because it deals specifically with California, given that the Silicon Valley is a technology base. And it is going to happen. We see in some of it now with Unit 4 workers in SEIU in the state right now.
Excellent. So I'll address those in the order that you presented them. So I'll start with how we win, and then we'll come back to AI. The how we win argument is the most important argument. Before I enter it, I want to go back to one piece from the prior conversation, which is about the dynamics that will emerge. So, the asterisk before what I'm about to say about how we win is that even if you don't believe that we are going to win, even if you think because the enemy has colonized your consciousness that the Democrats cannot be beaten, when a point of fact, of course they can be beaten. But even if you don't believe that they can, who would you rather have them pushed by, me or a Republican? Because if it's a Republican that's running, then they are going to be trotting out every Liz Cheney that they can find. They are going to be doing every Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon podcast that they can. But if it's me that they're having to deal with, they're going to have to deal with they're going to have to deal with a 21st century version of Malcolm X hitting them with like Black Bernie populism, minus the Zionism, obviously. Right? So that is going to drag the Overton window on the discourse so far left. It's going to really push them in a position where they're going to have to make a series of political concessions just to compete. Whereas if that is a Republican or it's a progressive Dem versus a corporate Dem, then the whole conversation is going to take place inside a box with chains around it at the bottom of the ocean. Like there will be, sorry, that was a Harry Houdini, it's going to take a magical escape to somehow get out of that, right? So what we want to do is that even if people don't believe it, understand that it's still the best outcome. Go ahead, Jason, and then I'll say how we win.
I was going to say, and you saw that in the forum that was held. You saw how, the only candidate on that stage who distinguished themselves at all, like the other six up there, they could relatively have been the same person. And on some of those questions, they couldn't even give a straight answer, like the answer on rent caps. you know I mean, how many of them said this, that, and the other, but never actually got to the yes, we support rent caps? How for the taxing? How many candidates did you hear say, well, people should pay their fair share, billionaires should pay their fair share? But when it came down to, do you actually support that wealth tax? I don't think Katie Porter even answered that
No,
as a
none of them
yes.
did.
you
And
know
for the
so
4 day work week, it was the same. They were like,
yep.
we should look at that. Sorry to interrupt, but yes.
No, no, no. But that was my point right there. You have already seen the distinction between somebody who is a pro labor candidate and all of the other candidates who are pro business. And we're not anti-business. Don't let me say it, because we want small businesses. We don't want corporate domination of our political sphere, but we want business to thrive, right? We don't want exploitative business. We want an economy that is thriving for people. And that's not
Commerce, not capitalism.
exactly. So you saw that distinction, and that is the point. We need to elevate that distinction in the public sphere. And if you have DNR on a stage together without anybody pushing that window, you're just going to see all you're going to hear is shades of the same answer, and none of it's going to be distinct. And then you're going to go with what we end up with. All right, who's raising the most money here? Right? That's what it ends up being. And the people who are raising the money are the people who are ultimately the most compromised. Chris, it looks like you got something here.
So, in the labor movement, and I talk about this, like the central theme of our podcast is like the main thing is to keep the main thing
The
the
main
main
thing.
thing, right? Kitchen table economics. Because when we organize members to become union, we don't ask them what party they're from, because everyone deserves a union. And I think that's one of the things our podcast keeps going, is because we have Republicans look at our podcast, we have Democrats looking at our podcast, we have Greens looking at our podcast, we have so it's something that's really special. I'm going to tell you an old story. When I talk to members, and we all talk about winning, how can you win? And basically, my job is to teach members who they are. And I'm going to tell you a story. When I was a young dad, I was like 28 years old. I took my daughters to the zoo and we went to go see the cheetah cage, right? It's a big cage. You know, they got trees in there and everything. But I'll never forget for the rest of my life, there was a dog, a golden retriever, inside that cage with the cheetah. And it was barking at that cheetah, going, "Row!" And the cheetah was all freaking scared. I'm looking at this, going, holy cow, that cheetah could rip that dog's face off. So I asked the zoo guy, I go, hey, what the heck is going on here? And he told me that the cheetah thinks the dog is dominant because the cheetah was born in captivity. So my point to, people in the Green Party is remember who you are. You are part of a movement. And we don't allow billionaires or millionaires to dictate our wages. They want you to live in captivity. That's the Democratic and Republican. They work together to keep everyone in captivity. Because let me tell you something, billionaires, they want they have a you ever heard of hedging your bets in the stock market or hedging? Well, they hedge every election. They go, well, if we don't get Trump, we'll get this person. We'll get so they always win. If they keep the two-party system alive, they'll always win. So I think if you know we talk about the votes, getting more votes, yeah, stick to people can't pay their rent, they can't pay their bills. People are struggling right now. Was it 60% of people living paycheck to paycheck? Those are the issues that people care about. But if they can have you talking about, banning TikTok or, and you're distracted, guess what they're going to do? They're going to raise the age of Social Security. They're going to do these things. And so, you know, if the foundation is keeping the main thing, I think he has a very, very good chance of winning because the foundation of the labor movement is, caring about people you don't know, and that includes all parties.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Chris. And I see Bill and Victor, and we'll take that order. Jamu, I have not forgotten your questions. I'm going to just use those as a closing argument, especially the part about how we win. But in the interest of time, I'm going to take the questions, and I promise I'll come back and answer those fully. Bill.
Thank you, Butch, and I'm so glad we're having a meeting like this. I'm a long time labor activist um, amongst education workers from Oakland, California. And I think, we're at a historic moment. We're at a moment not only because of the resistance to Trump, but a laying bare of how this system works.
Preach.
And while I'm not going to say that the labor bureaucracy is giving up their pretensions about, Democrats and I guess and Republicans, they're concerned now. The Democrats have been so discredited, and so I just want to say that, I've worked with this network of Mayday Strong. We're having actions on Labor Day. And I think the possibilities of reaching a considerable number of workers, um, not just about elections, as much as I want to see your campaign, but how elections grow or are organically linked to mass organizing. And if they're not linked to mass organizing, I don't think our colleagues will take it that seriously. And I know you understand how important that is. Thanks.
Thank you for everything and all of that contribution. And when you go to the website, it's the only electoral political campaign where you'll see a heading, mutual aid plus direct action plus electoral politics, because I'm a movement person. I believe that electoral politics is supposed to be a tool in the people's hand to fulfill a broader social liberation agenda. So I'm going to be utilizing the Green Party as a weapon in the hands of working people and trying to amplify all of those mutual aid and direct action activities. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain that. You really drilled down on the most important part is that even, and I'm just gonna be blunt about this, even corrupt union leadership that has been in bed with Dems is starting to understand that there's a crisis in the Democrat Party. I made a prediction that the Democrats are going the way of the Whig Party, and I stand by that evaluation. This party is never going to recover from the genocide in Gaza, and the genocide in Gaza was just the inevitable outcome of the corporate sell-off of the party. As soon who funds you runs you. And as soon as the party was wholly owned by weapons manufacturers and APAC, they were dead. It was a zombie party. It was just going to, take history unfolding for its ultimate death to occur. So this is crucial that we strike at this moment where they're weak and that we apply that pressure because there are, and somebody said it, don't say the names in the room of the people that are on our side in leadership because we don't have control over the room like that. We don't know who's in the room and who's listening. So I'm not naming names, but I know we're going to have people in important positions that are going to be guaranteeing that we get as fair a hearing as possible and that are going to make sure that that we get an opportunity because there is this crisis, and it's a huge part of how we win, and this goes back to part of answering John's question. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You say you're going to bet on the safest candidate, but $1 million, which is what you guys gave to Gavin the last time around, and all of the organizing unit from SEIU across the state, if you put that on us, we will win. We will win. And the reason is that it makes the plausibility question, it makes the can they win question, it puts it out of the conversation. An endorsement from a major union means that several other unions will follow, and even if they don't, it dramatically upscales our capacity for infrastructure building of the campaign through the state. It creates the door knocking and the canvassing opportunities. So as long as people are sitting on the fence, and this is the thing that you have to remind them, is that as long as they are sitting on the fence, they are actively on the side of the status quo. If you are neutral in a situation of oppression, you are on the side of the oppressor. If the inertial momentum is towards continuation of this corrupt relationship, then you need to be taking corrective action to alleviate the condition that you find yourself in. Last part, and I'll just finish the part on how we win. Very straightforward. Jason already laid it out. They hid the primary in June because they don't want anyone to vote. And that has this incredible capacity to backfire if we are organized to turn out the vote block by block. 5.5 million people voted in the 2022 primary. That's nothing. The state of California has a population of 39 million people. If we just get just the Muslim community, which already voted 53% for the Green Party in the presidential election, if we just get the Muslim community, if we got 5% of the African American community, if we got 7% of the Latino community, we run away with reaching that threshold in that primary. So all we have to do is treat the primary like the election, the same way that Zoran treated the primary like the election, and make sure that we are building the infrastructure, and it can't all be volunteers. So if we're able to secure this endorsement, then that is going to help with our fundraising. It's going to help with the credibility argument, and it's going to make it so that they cannot, like Politico changed the name of their event. They stopped calling it a candidate forum and called it a policy discussion so that they could get, plausible deniability on the fact that they wouldn't let me come speak, at their event tomorrow. That all ends. So the thing I want you guys to come away with is that you have it in your hands. If we can get organized inside SEIU to apply maximal leverage to a situation that's already moving in our favor, then we can very positively impact the outcome right now. And then before I call on Victor, I'll just say the AI conversation is, it's a conversation that is a fundamental importance. In the end, AI is a tool. and it is a tool in the hands of people that make decisions. Somebody put it into the chat, about all of the things that, China accomplishes with a combination essentially of state guided capital and private enterprise. The reason is that they're making decisions that are strategic when the market does not make those decisions for them, right? And that's literally China has this blend essentially of socialist and capitalist principles. And some people didn't like when I say California should be a place that has lots of millionaires, but should be hard on billionaires. But the reason why I said it is that China has the second largest number of millionaires in the world under the Chinese Communist Party. It's just that when decision makers are making decisions, they're orienting state investment of capital towards things that the so-called free market is not going to spontaneously invest in. And that's part of what I mean when I say that if we are treating AI as an opportunity to provide benefit rather than just profit, then the state itself should be thinking about how to not just protect workers from AI and not just protect us from the negative environmental effects of AI, but how to actually use AI for the benefit of the people in socially and ecologically responsible ways. If you give me a tool that is potentially of benefit, it's not going to bother me that somebody else was using it as a weapon. I'm going to use it as a tool. Victor.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. First of all, just having this meeting is awesome. Thank you so much for your support uh, for our union. I'll let you cooked and you answered honestly a lot of the questions that I had. Um, but one of the points I wanted to make, and somebody dropped a dime in the chat about a labor aristocracy, and I
Mm,
feel like that is kind of what is happening for a lot of state workers. Is that telework kind of highlighted an issue where managers are really trying to placate to the execs and really try to clamp down on workers. And we know that's always happened, but telework kind of just put it on a grand scale, the way the executive order rolled out and whatnot. And I guess the point I want to make is as you're trying to work to get support of our union, highlight that. Our union did support Gavin. And he turned around and gave us a paltry raise. And for all intents and purposes, we're going back to the office 4 days a week if the union doesn't negotiate anything different. That's the plan. And if anybody wants to tell you otherwise, then they foolish.
mm.
Um, so I say that to say, while you're working, keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to go there and remind folks of where we are and where we've been for the last 18 months. Thank you, Haley. Yeah, they would have us back 5 if it didn't completely break uh essentially break the law. Um and the last thing I want to bring up is we are getting ready to negotiate a contract. Now I don't know how that kind of plays politically, but I think your support and us doing that and for what things that you would want to see for not only our union but any union that's getting ready to go to the table, anything you can do to help us apply pressure there, I think would be a boon and help you not only get SEIU's endorsement, but every union's endorsement.
That's strategic gold right there. And so the first thing that hits my heart is that I want to make sure that we create a conversation thread out of this meeting so that you guys can continue the flow of ideas in real time as to where and how we can weigh in that's going to be most effective because that's going to evolve, right? The next stage in the endorsement process, somebody said, is the convention in LA. So by then, there, different things will have happened, and I'm gonna need to hear from y'all how to maximally intervene. But yes, you guys have my pledge that with or without, the with or without the support from the higher ups, I'm gonna come out banging for the union to try to position you guys in the best position for negotiation, not because it's good politics, but because that's the whole point, right? I didn't stop banging on, on Palestinian liberation because we lost the election, and weren't able to directly enforce a ceasefire. So it's not about the political outcome. It's about the real life outcome for ordinary people. So call me into action, and I will bring that passion and rhetorical flourish. Basically, I'll bring that hammer, to and
Yes,
put
sir.
my social media account and language, in y'all's service. And that actually reminds me something from the Islamic tradition, and it's a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, "The hearts of the children of Adam naturally incline to the people that provide benefit to them." Is that, in other words, the way that you get people heart to turn towards you is you work for them.
Mhm.
Bring something good to them. So call me into action, and I will show up and I will do the work. And that's how we'll dispel the idea, that the greens aren't always there, because y'all will find me there. So I'm just looking at the time, and I want to just have just a concrete ask about an email campaign, letter writing campaign, and creating a channel of communication so that you guys can continue to get us these good ideas about how to intervene with maximum efficacy. So that's an ask that I have of you guys, that you guys, take these concrete actions to start applying pressure, and to bring one, two, three, four more people to apply pressure as well. And then Victor already kind of presaged this, which is, what are your asks of me aside from showing up and supporting you in the negotiation process, supporting you in your internal processes to try to apply pressure? Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that right before this meeting started, about 20 minutes before, I got an email from Marcus Prasad, who's in the room right now. And he says, listen, I was in the SEIU meeting. You're fantastic. I want you to come to Yuba City. And so I responded immediately and I says, yes, we will be there. So I want you to know, wherever you are in this state, get in touch with us. We are going to be up and down the state. It's a priority to be in front of people. If you want us to come and talk to your union, but what I would ask is, not just your union, but your community. What I would ask is that if you have associations and networks with people in other unions, they're all going to be holding these endorsement votes. Start talking to them right now. And if we can come to your town and have a town hall that is a labor focused town hall, and you guys are in the room as SEIU, and Chris has got his UFCW people there, and we got the UAW people there, and we got transportation workers there, whoever it is that's in a union, because organized labor is a massively important force in the state of California and everywhere, but particularly in the state of California. We want to be in front of those people, because what happened at your forum, what's happening in this room right now, when you hear Butch, he's telling the truth. He's not blowing smoke at you. We're going to get out there and fight, and people will feel that, and they will go back into their own communities, and they will work for this campaign. That's what we need. We need an army, and labor can be and should be a huge part of that. So get in touch with us, manager. I'll put my email in the chat. Email me, manager at butchwareforgov.org. Let's start getting these on the ground meetings taken care of.
Yeah, and you'll learn this, is that literally anywhere you are in the state, if you can put people in the room, I'll come talk to them. So like, all you have to do is put, work, like Nora is in the chat, events coordinator, like literally, and we can help you put events together. If you've got constituencies that you can reach out to, if you guys can get people in a room, I'm on the road all of the time. As Ajamu put it, it's called retail politics. Listen, I was I was raised in a couple different inner cities at the height of the crack era. I'm just gonna be honest about this. All I can think about is that we got to win this block by block. We have to win this block by block, like, and that's just the way that this has to happen. So that's my plan. My plan is to get to every single corner in this state, and to every single rural county in this state, because there are a lot of people, including people that have been voting for Trump, that have never seen somebody show up and say, I'm here to work for you, and I don't care who you pray with or who you lay with or what you look like, but that it's my job to show up and work for you as working people. And you will find me a soldier in this affair. I promise you. So just call on me and we'll come. And whatever ideas you want to get to the campaign, get those ideas to the campaign. And yeah, we're coming for them. And y'all, like, y'all might not know this yet, but we absolutely can win. We absolutely can win. They do not have any solutions. Appreciate
So
y'all.
yeah, if I, I'd say it's 17 after 7 right now. I mean, if anybody has any further comments, questions, we can push it to 7:30. We'll do a hard close at 7:30. But if nobody has anything else they want to bring to the table right now, we can call it a day today. And like I said in the chat there, we can get this meeting up on YouTube and have somebody sit down and watch this for an hour, and they can get the same sense that you guys got in the forum here uh, from this meeting, and whatever. We'll just make that available.
Thank you for that because it reminded me of one last ask that I had written in my handwritten notes halfway through the meeting. Apply pressure to SEIU to release the video. Apply pressure to SEIU to release that live stream video. Because if that hits the internet, it makes everybody in this room's job a lot easier, right? Because then you don't have to be working so hard upstream or uphill rather, because everybody will have seen what you guys saw. They're going to be read into the obvious difference in candidate quality, messaging, and integrity. So one of the simple things that you can put in those letters and those demands is, the people need to see it. And it's going to create a kind of dynamic inside SEIU leadership because after the endorsement comes, then they'll release the video one way or the other because then it helps justify the endorsement. But beforehand, it helps create the environment that makes it more likely that the endorsement will come. So again, appreciate everybody taking the time tonight, and I appreciate all the work that you've already done and all the work that's upcoming.
I just got a hand up before we go.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, it blended into the background with your Malcolm quote. I didn't see the hand.
That's one of the quotes you I had it as one of my backgrounds.
We are not outnumbered. We are
For a
out
while.
organized. Yes.
It was actually the first book I read when I came to the States was his last 14 speeches, and I was blown away. But
If I could hug you back, I would. So yes.
yeah, I said in the bathroom actually at the event in the break, like I'll vote for anyone who is quoting Malcolm X, and then somebody responded, me too. So, but I wanted to bring up, in 2016 after the DNC, I want to use some colorful language, but I shall abstain. After they stole the primary from Bernie. A
Yep.
lot of us, I was in Philly, cut my hair into a mohawk, drove a truck across the country. I was so angry. And, a lot of us went for Jill right there in Philly.
Yep.
But I noticed, I don't know if this was an online phenomenon or is it in general in the Green Party. In real life, I do not know, but I felt like there was COINTELPRO all over the green groups. It was such a resistance to Bernie people joining and lifting the Green Party into the 5%, at least, right? And I think we need to take that into account and fight it at every step of the way.
Thank you for that. And if you attended, some people I know, Drew is one of them. I think Chris Flores is one of them. Bobby as well. If for those that have attended my Rooster Revolution, so we did a Panther Power one. So understand that operational security is my number one concern. and the Green Party has, I mean, Jill talks about the fact that the Democrats run ads for paid informants to come in to infiltrate the party. And there are dynamics, very serious COINTELPRO dynamics inside the party. Like it's literally like reading the COINTELPRO handbook. People, waste time in meetings, try to drive, people away, take up a bunch of space without accomplishing anything. So just understand that I'm fully aware of that. The campaign is its own unit. So the campaign is hermetically sealed off from the toxicities that the Green Party has allowed, in and or has not been able to prevent due to lack of resources. And don't get me wrong, there's amazing Green Party people all throughout the party. We've got several of them in the room, Greg and Bill who spoke earlier, and Nora and others. But I have been acutely aware of this problem because we had people, just to be honest about this, that infiltrated the Steinware campaign that had to be excised from that campaign. So just understand that I'm fully aware of it. I'm watching my 12, I'm watching my 6, and I'm making sure that we create an environment inside the campaign that doesn't allow it to be derailed by a lack of operational security. And then the last thing that I'll just say about that is that what the Green Party will become whatever pathway we lay down through this process over the next 9 months. Because the Green Party has never done what we are currently doing. And my calculus and bet was that whoever is outside of the corporate parties that demonstrates strength electorally first is going to be the party that replaces the Democrats as an actual opposition party as their decline accelerates. And so, as I always have from the time I was, a starving child, I bet on myself and I bet on my teammates that if we keep a strong circle of trust and never quit and keep punching, that we are going to be the people that set the pace. And you are already seeing it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to like go do push-ups or something. Like I'm ready to go. Like I'm ready to I'm ready to fight.
I'll say it again. Be in touch with the campaign. Be in touch with each other. Build whatever network you need to build to do self-support on this effort to get to pressure your leadership to support us. And our campaign is here for labor. I mean, we're here for every community that is downtrodden. Butch said the Green Party has the best labor platform, but we're not known as a labor party. The Green Party has the best platform for Black and Latino voters, but we're not known as a Black and Latino party. On down the line, the Green Party has been publicly known as sort of an environmental niche, but the platform itself is expansive. And we're here to support. I mean, we're an anti-capitalist, eco-socialist party, and some people don't like the labels. Those labels kind of turn people off, but everybody in this room, you understand what that means. We're here for the working class. We're here for marginalized communities, and we want to end. We want true democracy, real democracy, which we don't have in this country and have not had, I think, probably ever. But we're here for it, and I think everybody, we're all on the same page with that. So, please be in touch. Email me, and let's get this thing done. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah, and I believe that my wife made so everybody that registered, we'll just create a chat. You'll probably get an invitation. Probably we'll do it through Revolutionary Learning Community, just so that there's actual place where we can continue the conversation. And again, thanks to everybody. I think I am actually gonna just pray and then hit the gym. So all right, take care,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody. Solidarity.